So in my lifetime, I've witnessed many remakes of certain media. Some with movies like RoboCop, Stephen King's It, and Willy Wonka / Charlie in the Chocolate Factory. And then some with video games like the Pokemon Generation remakes, Metroid Zero Mission, which might also play into the argument of this video since it also does my personal remake definition very well. Final Fantasy IV and 7 Remake. Sorry, another quick tangent. Why is this game still called FF7 Remake and not FF7 Remake Part 1? Little misleading there, Square. Alright, back on top bit. Oh. Really? And to get back on the main subject of the video, Resident Evil. Now inadvertently, this video might just be about which Resident Evil remake is the greatest and not the greatest remake of all media ever created, but I have to say something. I truly wish all remakes would follow in the footsteps of Resident Evil 1 Remake. So, what is the definition to a remake? Well, let's just do a quick Google search while I unabashedly show you my hundreds of internet tabs at the same time. So it says here that a remake is to, and I quote, make something again or differently. Simple enough, quick and to the point. But what if I were to tell you that there is a better way of doing this? Let's say a very specific combination of the two keywords in that definition. Again and differently. Make it exactly the same, but different and surprising enough. Also factor in that this is a video game we're talking about here, so let's include terms like story/scenario wise and gameplay wise. Let me get into more detail here of what I mean. Try to make it again for newcomers of the series, but slightly different enough that people who have experienced the original game can also be surprised about. I personally find that Resident Evil 1 Remake does this not only perfectly, but also consistently throughout the entire playthrough. That's not to say the Resident Evil 2 Remake doesn't do this on the story/scenario side of things. For example, the liquor not being in the first floor hallway like originally, and biggest of all, Mr. X showing up in Scenario A, or as they call it in the remake, First Run. These are a fantastic surprise, and it's a prime example, story-wise, of the remake definition that I mentioned. Now you may have noticed I said story-wise back there. Well, there is another element to the perfect video game remake, and that's gameplay-wise. Resident Evil 2 Remake decides to follow in its post-Umbrella Downfall era and playing a third-person behind-the-back camera angle that RE4 made famous and would continue on for its sequels and spin-offs of Resident Evil 5, Resident Evil Revelations 1 and 2, or Revelations, nice job there Capcom, Resident Evil 6, and Resident Evil 3 Remake. Oh god, we'll get to that eventually. Maybe here, or in another video, because I definitely have some things to say about that mistake. Some good, and some really bad. So, because Resident Evil 2 Remake is doing the third-person camera thing, it's not doing what the original PS1 game did, which is the classic fixed camera angles and tank controls that come with it. But you know what does do that? Resident Evil 1 Remake. Down to its roots of both fear and frustrations that come with those types of old games that had pre-rendered backgrounds. Resident Evil 1 Remake does do the fixed camera angles and does do the tank controls. Although with the re-releases, they made new modern controls, so in case the tank controls were a little too much, you can change them if you wanted to. Other than them nailing the gameplay aspect of the remake, remember the again part of the definition, they also nailed the story and scenario bits that I mentioned earlier when I was talking about Resident Evil 2 Remake. They are not only there for the newcomers, but also fans who are familiar with how the original game played out, or what I like to call it, the devs messing with us. Let's go over some of the earlier instances of this. So for example, we all know about the dog hallway. In the original game, if you're playing as Jill, I should mention, because she is the master of unlocking, Right after you get your first map, you then enter a quiet hallway. You start to walk through it when suddenly... Doberman dogs, or Cerberus as the scientists have named them, burst through the window and start to give chase as you run frantically. Pretty memorable scene, right? Now, what does the remake do? Absolutely nothing. At least, not yet. Eventually, when you do come back to this hallway later after you've explored most of the mansion, it is then you get the classic chase scene. It's those moments of anticipation where you know what's coming if you played the original game, but at the same time, not really, as the devs were actually counting on that reaction. Oh, let me tell you, those devs were hoping for that. And they went above and beyond, as the game is filled with those kinds of, oh, you thought different moments. Oh yeah, they also did the opposite too with that formula. With now things being there that weren't there in the original. I forgot to mention, back in the same room where you get your first map, there is a room in the back behind the small table that you can push and gain access to an item. In the original, you grab the ink ribbon, walk past the ground zombie, or kill it, and be on your way. In the remake, however... yeah, that's the stuff. Oh, and there's even another one back in the dining room with your first zombie encounter. But I digress. These are the opening moments, and I don't want to go through each and every one of them. I really could, but I don't want to spoil too much for those who haven't really played this series before. But again, that's why I absolutely love Remake 1 so much. They went out of their way to cater not only to newcomers, but to the diehard fans who know how these games work. And that's the thing with most of these Resident Evil games. They will always warrant multiple playthroughs. Except Resident Evil 6. Dear God, this game is way too long. But it does have its moments. Play the clip.
Guess we're not going that way.
So for those of you who are still here and have watched all the way through to the end, I want to give you my biggest thanks for checking out this video. This is my first time doing any video editing at all, so I hope it was at least passable. Now, for all intents and purposes, and for future talk, this will not be a Resident Evil channel. I just wanted to make a video about how much I really liked Resident Evil 1. Does that mean I won't ever get to talk about Resident Evil again? Oh no. There will definitely be a variety of different games and genres here. That and, well, I'm also streaming, and honestly would like to pursue that. So if you're interested in that at all, here's a link to my Twitch channel. I've decided to start on a series called The Backlog, original name, yes, where I pick up games that I started to play and never finished. And let me tell you, there are a ton, as you can see here. With it, I think, even growing more as time passes. I see you are still here. Maybe I should do a quick introduction of myself. My name is Simifu, and I mostly like video games. That's about it. Okay, there's a tiny little bit more. I also might really like a very specific character from a very niche video game series that's also getting a re-release on PC and Switch soon. Go buy it. Do it for Cornet. That's all. What, are you still here? I guess I could rant about people slapping spicy sauce on a chicken sandwich and then them having the audacity to call it a spicy chicken sandwich. Because that's something that irks me.